Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. And as y'all know, it's the off season. It's all about looking forward. It's about creating positive momentum. And we've had a guy here come on a couple of times. It's nothing but positivity. We love him. One of the great linebackers in Alabama history, all SEC, all American, first round NFL draft pick, national champion times two. It's number 32. Rashaan Evans, welcome back, man.
Man, always glad to be back.
So, Rashaan, I mean, I mentioned that it's the off season. We're starting this new sort of like series, this segment, this idea called Fixing Alabama Football. Now,
Mhm.
Alabama went to the college football playoff last year. They went to
Mhm.
the SEC championship game. They played in the Rose Bowl. So, by pretty much every measure, Kalen DeBoer's second season was a success. But
Mhm.
even though they made the conference title game, they made the playoff quarterfinal, the performances in those games is what was really concerning for everybody. And I'm sure no more so than to those guys who actually wear the uniform and wore it that day. And we've heard many times from your former coach, Nick Saban, nobody's more critical of
Mhm.
Alabama football than the guys who actually play it. So
Correct.
dopes like us who do podcasts who didn't play and aren't
Mhm.
there, like we don't know really how to fix it. That's why we look to people like you and your former
Mhm.
teammates, guys who walked the walk, guys who won championship, put on the
Mhm.
pads, went out there and competed at the highest possible level. So we don't want anybody to get it twisted. We're not
Yeah.
trying to fix it ourselves. We're asking experts like you. But Rashaan, before we get there, I do just want to ask you
Mhm.
what you thought of the 2025 season as a whole, right? Like year
Mhm.
two of Kalen DeBoer, how would you describe the Alabama football team that you saw last year from start to finish?
I would say obviously wasn't on the same level of the standard that we probably used to seeing over the past years, but I will definitely say from this past season that Kalen DeBoer and the guys that were a part of this season, they did what they could to get the job done and to be able to put themselves in a position to be able to compete in that playoff caliber type situation. That is the good that I got from that season. I know, like we said, people are harping on results now. You know what I'm saying? Kalen DuBois has finally had a first season, got his second season. Now he's had a winning seasons, had the opportunity to go into playoffs and do those type of things. Now everybody's putting their attention on, can he take us to the promised land now? I think the stakes have now risen even more because of the simple fact that as the years go on, people want to start seeing some true results as far as getting back to that national championship type caliber team. And I think that's the big emphasis right now. But overall, from what I've seen, I think Kalen DeBoer and the team, they did exactly what they needed to do in order to put themselves in position to have a great I guess postseason, to be able to put themselves in position and talks of being able to get that old way of Bama way of going to the championship and winning. So that's what I would say.
It's a great perspective. I mean, I wonder, as somebody who, Rashaan, in your case, I believe you only experienced 5 losses in the 4 years that you were
Yeah.
there, and which might sound like a lot to you as somebody who won as much as you did, but
Yeah.
that's totally ridiculous to have that few of losses in an entire career span. But
Mhm.
in 2014, y'all lost to Ole Miss on the road and then to Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. 2015, it was Ole Miss at home, then y'all won it all.
Correct.
2016, y'all go undefeated all year, and then y'all fall short in the title game. And then 2017, you lose at Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Then you win it all again. That's 2 national
There we go.
championships. A little small flex for you there. But, I have to think that as much winning that you were a part of, the losses, because they were so rare, they had to sting pretty bad.
They did.
But how did you and your teammates normally respond to a loss? Like, I mean, I'm obviously thinking about how this Alabama team might rebound from the Indiana game, but we've heard Coach Saban talk about not wasting a failure. That's something
Mhm.
he preaches all the time. But Rashaan, what do you remember about that feeling, as
Mhm.
rare as it was, after a loss, and what you wanted to do about it?
Oh yeah, I mean it stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, we were at the time when we were playing, a loss was like, I mean, it felt like the end of the world. Even a win that wasn't won in a certain type of style felt like a loss. So that type of caliber of winning and camaraderie and just the environment in itself was completely different when it came to when we won and when we lost. You were almost couldn't tell the difference unless You won in big numbers. And Coach Saban used to constantly harp that. And to say that it is not like that now, I really wouldn't be able to say that because I'm not in the facility to say that those guys were not hurt after losing or having their season cut short and not be able to play in that last game like every other player would love to do. I would feel like if they had any type of competitive spirit in their bone. But just overall, from that past time, losing was not a non-negotiable. We knew that we felt like if we lost, the season was over with. It felt like that a lot of times, and I think that's one of the main reasons why we had so much success in the past.
I love what you said about how if you didn't win a certain way, it still felt like a loss. I mean,
Yeah,
we all watched the Super Bowl the other night. Sam Darnold at the end of the game, he right after winning the Super Bowl, he literally said, "I know we just won the Super Bowl, but we didn't play well enough in
yeah,
that game." And that's
yeah,
just like a competitor's mentality. Rashaan, I
yeah.
wonder, are you one of those guys who is a I hate losing more than I love winning? How does that work for you?
Oh, no doubt. I think just with that mindset, even with Sam Darnold, he understands like I can get comfortable for maybe a split second and then it's on to the next thing. I think that what keeps you on top. And Coach Saban used to constantly preach that type of mentality. You know, and people will say, oh, well, it's kind of barbaric to win a national championship Super Bowl and consistently have that mindset to where you can't have a time of enjoyment and parades and accolades and all those things. That's great. But I feel like those type of things are, like you said, it can be rat poison. It can almost breed into the next season of, hey, we've arrived. Not knowing that every year you constantly have to start over and start that journey over with different guys, different coaches, maybe different schemes, and it's just a whole pot of just other different stuff that you got to consistently do each and every year, and to be able to stay on top. I think even now, even like a Sam Darnold situation, the fact that they even won, it's even harder now to get back to that situation because now you got a target on your back. And that's what we used to have at Alabama. We knew that even after we won our national championships, that going into this off season, that the teams that we beat, they were already getting ready and prepared to beat us because they knew that they had to go through us in order to get to that last game. So I think that's the same type of mindset Sam Darnold's probably taking, and any other team that has won a championship game.
It speaks to the greatness of y'all's era because you heard a lot of people talk about Drake May and Mike Vrabel and these New England
Mhm.
Patriots that it's hard to get back if you don't
It
win.
is.
It's hard to get back to the Super Bowl. And you played in 4 straight playoffs. You played in
Yeah.
3 straight national title games. So it's just unspeakable what you were
Yeah.
able to accomplish at Alabama. But Rashaan, we talked about like this idea of like fixing Alabama football. So through
Mm.
your eyes, I'm interested. Let's look at each side of the ball now. Let's start with the defense. What did
Yeah.
you see as Alabama's biggest weakness on that side of the ball? I mean, the Rose Bowl was obviously tough because it was confusing because on that first series, Alabama looked like your era. I mean, they were dominant. They got to Fernando Mendoza, 3 and out. They looked physical. The pass rush looked strong. Then
Yeah.
Indiana just carves them up on the ground and through the air. I mean, that's obviously one game, but it really shed light on some of the things that Alabama might need to change. And this was after Alabama had a mostly pretty outstanding season on the defensive side of the ball. So, what do you think Kane Womack and this unit need to do to improve in 2026?
Well, I kind of had two questions before I was even getting prepared to answer this question. There was two questions I had to ask myself. Is it the talent that we have a problem with, or is it the scheme? And that's the biggest thing. You gotta ask yourself that. You're going through recruiting that in this process right now in the beginning. You kind of ask yourself, do we need to add more players? Do we need to let some guys go? And then you start constantly deeping even thinking even deeper. If you go back and look at some of those games, if I would have made this call or if I would have made this play, would we have been in a different situation? And let's say we made it to the last game, would we be talking about some of the things that we're about to talk about now? And would it be a problem as big of a problem as it is now? Those are the main things I would think that people would think of going into this next season. So for me, I would think as far as improvement, you can go starting from the front line. I think that's the basis of it all. You have to have a great front line. I think some of the outside guys that we had, they had some really good splash plays. They made some plays and did some great things. Was it on the same caliber as what we're used to as far as getting to the quarterback like in the past? No, I don't think so. I think also as far as the secondary, I think we can also be a little bit better on the secondary when it comes to making big plays, making tips and overthrows, causing a run to stay on the inside and not being able to splash on the outside, and not our cornerbacks being able to make big plays. When a runner gets to the outside, so and then also when we make our way back to the inside, I think some of the linebackers played like Lawson, all those guys. They played a really good football towards the end of the year. They started playing a lot more physical. You start seeing the tone start to get set as the year goes on because they started knowing that the caliber play needed to go up in order for them to advance. So just overall, I think that I don't want to harp too much on the talent level because I feel like if you're gonna go get guys, and especially going to get guys for a team like the University of Alabama, you're already looking at the best of the best. I would think that you're recruiting the best possible guys you can get, right? And then there's another aspect, like I was saying earlier, about schematics. What are we really good at? And the things that we're good at, let's harp on that and not worry too much of what we're bad at, because I'm like, you can go back and look at a million different things in film and say that, hey, we should have did this better, this better, and that better, and all those different things. But you have to kind of look at what do you do best? Who are you now? Don't look at what you were 4, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Who are we now? Are we a physical type of defense that we want to be? Do we have the type of guys in the room that have that type of mentality? Do we have the type of coaches that can put our players in the right position in order to make plays? Are we calling enough blitzes? Are we zoning up enough? Are we reading our formations correctly when it comes to diagnosing plays? And that comes with not just with the coaches giving it to the players, but the players actually understanding the defense and playing it at a high level. So I just think overall, I think they just need to go back to the drawing board and ask themselves, is it the players or is it the schematics? I think overall, I don't think it's a bit bad of a situation because of how they responded this year compared to the year before. We were thinking that maybe this next year could possibly be another situation like the first year, but they made some improvements. So I would like to stay on the positive end going into this next year, that this will be the year that they take that next level and start putting themselves in a conversation of being the number one top five team and being able to play in those last games. So that's what I would say.
Incredible. I mean, talent is one thing, and you've certainly got transfers coming in, which is what every team is supposed to do at
Talent
this
is
point.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw it in the playoff in the Final Four. Those teams built their rosters in the transfer portal, but Alabama has guys who they're unique, I think, in a lot of ways, where you've got so many guys who have stuck around. I mean, this year coming back, even in the secondary alone, Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, Red
Yeah.
Morgan, Davian Brown. I mean, they've got some studs back there, and they've got to build around those guys. So you make a great point about talent. So switching to the other side, Rashaan, the
Mm,
offense, Ty Simpson left for the NFL. I mean, it's either Keelan Russell or it's Austin Mack at
mm,
quarterback. There's a little uncertainty there, but we know that DeBoer and Grubb can develop quarterbacks. They can develop wide receivers. But the story last year was the run game. Alabama couldn't run the ball because they didn't run the ball, right? Like they
mm.
had talented guys in the backfield, but the offensive line was super inconsistent, and they just
Yeah.
never really found a rhythm running it. So what does Alabama need to do on offense to reach that championship level again, to get back to the promised land, as you mentioned earlier?
I think they need to commit to that run game. I think that stapled our offense when it came to us being able to win games. And I'm not saying that it was overly on the offense, but that offense, that run game allowed the quarterback to be able to have an opportunity to spread defenses out. I mean, you got to keep defenses honest, and to know that you got re- safeties being able to just walk up and be able to be comfortable being walked up and not having any type of fear of being thrown over the edge. I think that's a problem. So, I just think that we just got to stay true to the run game. I think we need to understand that the quarterback that we had this previous season is no longer there. So we have to know the guy that's in the room right now, what are the things that he does well, and build off of that and build the offense around that as well. Is he a running type quarterback? Is he a run first quarterback? Does he throw first? Does he read good? You got to go down a list on the running backs that you have. Are they more ground and pound type running backs, or are they more scat backs? Do you need to put them out there on the perimeter? and open the offense up so they can make some plays. I think just knowing the identity of the offense that you have is the most key factor, because then you could put the right type of players in the rightful positions based off their skill sets. I think that was the biggest thing. Alabama knew that Derrick Henry, we didn't have to line Derrick Henry out there on the slot to go run an out route and make a catch. We didn't have to do that. We knew we could just line him up in I formation and go ground and pound. But we knew other guys that like Kenyon Drake who could spread them out, put them out there in the perimeter, put them on some screens, do some play action, and do some different type of stuff to get defenses on their heels so they're not constantly honing in on what we're doing. Because you got to think, everybody has technology, everybody has film, everybody knows what you're going to do. All these coaches that are coaching now, they've been on multiple different teams. They've seen every single possible formation you can get in. So there's nothing that's a surprise to anybody. So I just think, like I said, just knowing what you're good at, knowing the player's skill set, and the coaches just knowing those simple things can put players in position so that we can have a better outcome, especially in that postseason. I know you're dealing with injuries. I know you're dealing with different type of things that go on during that time. I know there's a lot of different stuff that goes on during that time, but I think what gets them over that hump is those things, knowing what we are good at that current time, and just basically perfecting it so we can get to that last game.
Man, that's the nicest thing I bet you've ever said about the offense. Our offensive players before,
Yeah,
you
I'm
trying to
like,
kill them every week, every day.
yeah.
But I mean, you're dropping names like Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake, and you forget like how loaded you guys were on both
Oh,
sides of
no
the ball.
doubt.
So I can only imagine what competition was like at practice. But speaking of this, though, Rashaan, so I'm sure you may be, and other people are familiar with the Bama Standard podcast, right? And
Mhm.
and they may have heard just recently, former Alabama linebacker who just played his final year of eligibility at
Yeah.
Alabama, Nikhai Hill-Green. He was a transfer from Colorado. He played in 2025 in Tuscaloosa. The show is
Mhm.
hosted by Justin Riley, also features former Alabama linebacker Marvin Constant. Daniel Petty's on the show. But Reggie Ragland was on a recent episode, former teammate of yours, right? And when
Mhm.
when Alabama's Rose Bowl loss came up, the conversation, it got a little heated. I'm going to read a
Yeah.
little bit of what Reggie said in quotes, right?
Mhm.
So he said, quotes, "At times I feel like guys wouldn't hold the point of attack. Guys would get thrown around. Sometimes the DBs wouldn't come up and tackle." He continued, "I feel like y'all weren't physical a lot during the year because this Indiana game, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Even if you're working your ass off and you're missing plays, at least you can be physical out there and let them know that you're still there." Last thing I'll mention that he says, "And I feel like once they got up, guys just said, I'm cool. I'm going to go get in my Benz. I'm going to go home." Like, that's how I feel. That's what I felt like I saw. Y'all didn't come ready to be physical. So, Rashaan, strong words from Reggie, obviously. And he's a guy who has been on Twitter and elsewhere,
Mhm.
and he cares about Alabama and he wants to
Yeah.
see Alabama succeed. I think that this comes from a place of love with
Mhm.
Reggie. So I just wonder, though, how much of this is mentality? And where does it come from? Like, is it
Mhm.
is it the coaching staff's responsibility to instill
Mhm.
that in the players? Is it on the players to execute? Like, how does that
Mhm.
work?
Well, I think what Reggie said, I think he was spot on when it came to physicality. I mean, if you look at some of those games, you knew right then that this was not the same type of Alabama team we're used to. I just think it was very obvious when it came to how, like he said, they were approaching how some of our linebackers were engaging blocks, how our ends were allowing runs to get outside of the perimeter, how we were getting in some situations we were not in communication on the back end to defend touchdowns. I think he was spot on point when it came to that. And like he said, it doesn't take any skill set to play hard. Doesn't take any type of skill set to play physical. It's truly a mentality thing. And truly, I think that there's an aspect for the coaches to demand that out of the players, because at the end of the day, if you see that there's a player that does not do that day in and day out, he should not be on the field. But I also think there's another aspect with the player in itself. You got to ask yourself on how important is the money to you? How important is getting to the next level and being a possible, first rounder? Gaining the accolades that you want to gain individually. And I think those type of mentalities is what made us great. It's because each and every individual player that played on that team back in the day, they wanted to be the best, period. We were competing on who's going to get tackled first. We were competing on who's going to get more interceptions than the other. We were competing that type of way. And that type of mentality breeds aggressiveness but also at the same time, not just aggressiveness, but also almost kind of like a calculated aggression. I'm aggressive all the way until the whistle stops, so it doesn't hurt my team. But I just think what Reggie said, I think he was just spot on because you got to have make up in your mind before that clock strikes that I have made up my mind that there is nobody on this field that's going to beat me. And when it comes to one on one, going against my man one on one, I'm going to win that match. And if you just do that, they play for play all the way through 60 minutes, you usually get a good outcome. So, yeah, what Reggie was saying, I think he was definitely spot on when it came to that physicality part.
Well, last thing then, because again, I mentioned that this appears to come from a place of love with Reggie. It seems to with you as well. You've been so
Yeah,
positive. You're so positive all the
yeah,
time. You obviously love Alabama. You love when you were there. You watch it now. You
yeah.
speak with a lot of positivity. But if you had to use tough love, right?
Mm,
And I think like tough love is something like we see a lot in
yeah,
sports and football in particular. But if whether you're in the locker room, whether you're using a platform like this or any other
yeah.
show or whatever, what kind of tough love, what kind of constructive feedback and brutal honesty would you give Alabama right now going into 2026?
Well, for the main thing is that we are not a number one team. We are not. I don't even think we're top five right now, only because of like I said, it's not so much about play, but it's the mentality part. I think even with us, when we used to lose a game, how we responded after that was even the most eye opening part about it because we always felt like just one loss would ruin the whole season. And I feel like they took that and did exactly that. But then there's another mentality when comes to finishing. If you don't know how to finish and you don't have that type of drive, you don't have that type of grit in order to just finish through when it comes to the back end of the season, you're getting put in positions like we just had this past season. We're back at the couch sitting watching somebody else play. So just from the brutal honesty part on my behalf, yeah, we're not what we used to be by a long shot. Even with the season that we had, still is not the same. Everybody knows the certain style of play is the biggest part and the biggest eye opener that we saw this year. It's not so much about just going about and saying that, hey, we just got a W on the board. We knew even with those W's that in certain parts of the game, if we were to play a better team, we would have lost that game. And that's what bites you in the ass at the end of the season. So, and that's exactly what happened with this team. I think they got so complacent on the fact that, hey, we're winning. What's the problem? Instead of honing in on the very specific things that get you into that last game. And those things are just like the physicality part, uh, being on the same communication when it comes to, knowing your reads, knowing your keys, everybody making tackles, people at the in the engagement of blockers and all those different things, finishing on the play, quarterbacks making their reads, receivers catching the ball with great mechanics. Those little things that Coach Saban used to preach to us, that shit matters. And it shows up at the end of these games because when you're not locked in, you got guys that out there that they're trying just as hard as you to get to that next level. So I think that grit part, like he said with Reggie, it's a grit thing, man. It's something that you just can't truly buy. You kind of have to have it in you in a way. And Coach Saban knew how to recruit those type of guys. So even if you don't have that type of guy, he even still knew how to install it in you to the point he programmed you to the point where if you didn't do that job, he didn't have to say nothing. He had guys in these locker rooms that were gonna straighten you out to the point the next time you went out there, you was gonna do it the right way. I guarantee. So that's what I would say.
I love it. Tough love, but it's all
Yeah,
love, obviously, and it's from a guy
yeah.
who would know. You've been there, you've done that, and so I hope everybody's listening to you.
Mhm.
Rashaan Evans, one of the best to do it, on the rise as a football analyst, I must say. We're huge fans of yours, as you know. Thanks
Appreciate
again
that,
for doing this, man.
man. Thank y'all for having me.